It is now my privilege to introduce our featured speaker for this lunch. The Most Reverend Bernard Hebda was born and raised in the Pittsburgh area. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from Harvard and a law degree from Columbia University. He studied at the North American College in Rome, where he completed his theological studies and earned his STB from Pontifical Gregorian University in 1989. Archbishop Hebda was ordained to the priesthood that same year. He served a number of parishes in Pennsylvania before being appointed in 1996 to work in the Pontifical Council for Legislative Texts in Rome, which is responsible for the interpretation of the Church's law, especially the Code of Canon Law. In 2003, he was named Undersecretary of the Council. Hebda was named Bishop of the Diocese of Gaylord in 2009, and in 2013, Pope Francis named him Coadjutor Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Newark. And it is our good fortune that in 2015, Pope Francis named him Apostolic Administrator of the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, and then in 2016, named him Archbishop of our Archdiocese. Archbishop Hebda has been a great friend of the University of St. Thomas, and I'm personally very grateful for his friendship and his support. And we were really delighted and honored when we invited him to join us for this very special occasion, and he agreed to be our featured speaker. So please join me in welcoming Archbishop Hebda.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for not only the kind invitation to be here today, but that very gracious introduction. The one message that was conveyed was that I can't hold a job. But I'm really thrilled to be here today, grateful, knowing what an important role the University of St. Thomas plays in this community and in our Archdiocese. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to gather with so many alumni, especially as we're on the cusp of Advent and already have our sights on Christmas. Now, I have to confess that I'm not an alumnus, but I did sit in the sun with Caruso's crew in the end zone for the Tommy Johnny game at Target Field. And I was wearing the UST cap that Dr. Sullivan had given to me when I first arrived. That should surely count for something. But I'm particularly happy to be here in this Christmas context, at your Christmas luncheon. This is such a special time of year. I love the sights, the sounds, the smells of Advent and Christmas. While I'm really not much of a TV watcher, I have to confess that I often turn it on this time of year just to soak in the Christmas commercials. While there's not quite the hype as on Super Bowl weekend, the commercials in these weeks before Christmas tend to be among the very best. Last year, you might remember Amazon Prime's commercial with the priest and the imam who bought each other precisely the same gift, a padded knee brace for praying. If anyone needs any ideas for me, I'll take one, huh? But that commercial was among my all-time favorites. But I don't know if you've seen this year's M&M commercial. It's right up there as well. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. And if you've been wondering since 1996, when its now iconic M&M commercial had Santa and the red M&M both fainting after encountering each other one Christmas Eve, and coming to the recognition that the other really existed. But I'm happy to share with you the tagline, "Bring everyone together with M&Ms." It's a great message that really captures the season. Marketing experts tell us that a good tagline can make all the difference. With that in mind, I had been thinking about adopting "Feel the Burn" once my namesake, Bernie Sanders, was eliminated from the presidential race last year. but saner heads prevailed. Far more appropriate and engaging, however, is the tagline adopted by your alma mater, all for the common good. As the local bishop, I can tell you that I've received a few letters suggesting that perhaps it was too secular for a Catholic university. But I think it's profound and well-rooted in the Catholic tradition that gave birth to St. Thomas. With respect to the University of St. Thomas, the tagline is both aspirational, where the university knows that it needs to be, and descriptive of what already occurs, and indeed what has been your alma mater's mission since it was founded by my predecessor, Archbishop Ireland. I love that it offers a particular connection to the intellectual tradition of the university's namesake, St. Thomas Aquinas, who brought his great intellect to bear on the very notion of common good. More than a few commentators have suggested that the common good, in fact, is the foundational element of St. Thomas's social thought. His notion of the common good is by no means only for the 1200s. It's as relevant today as it ever was in the world, in the university, and in this alumni community. Pope Francis has returned often to the notion of common good. It was one of his major themes when he spoke to our Congress in the course of his visit to the United States in 2015, and it continues to be one of his signature themes. In the course of an address to politicians in Bolivia, Pope Francis stressed that each of us shares a calling to work for the common good, a calling to work for the common good. He referenced in particular the teaching of the Second Vatican Council that defined the common good as the sum of those conditions of social life which allow social groups and their individual members relatively thorough and ready access to their own fulfillment. For Pope Francis, the common good is much more than the sum of individual interests. It moves from what is best for me to what is best for everyone. It embraces everything which brings a people together, he said. Common purpose, shared values, ideas which help us to look beyond our limited individual horizons. In the message that Pope Francis just released for the 2018 World Day of Prayer for Peace, which we will be celebrating on New Year's Day in just a few weeks, he spoke of a correct understanding of the common good, implying that the notion of common good can be misunderstood and perhaps is sometimes misunderstood. In fact, it's a much richer concept than mere material prosperity, to which it is often reduced. The person working all for the common good knows that to act responsibly is to see one's own actions in the light of other people's rights and God's judgment. That's Pope Francis. Our world, he said, marked as it is by divisions and conflicts, as well as by grave forms of material and spiritual poverty, expects from Christians a witness of mutual esteem and fraternal cooperation, capable of revealing to every conscience the power and truth of Christ's resurrection. A university such as St. Thomas has a crucial role to play here. Pope said those who are given the opportunity to study also have the responsibility to serve the good of humanity. Knowledge, he noted, is the privileged path to the integral development of society, to the attainment of the common good. How do we go about doing that? Let's take some suggestions from Pope Francis, but I would see really that we need to make 5 commitments. The first is that dialogue is an important aspect of achieving or attaining the common good. Pope Francis, in fact, said that dialogue is the best means of promoting the common good on the basis of a culture of encounter respect, and acknowledgement of the legitimate differences and opinions of others. For him, for the Pope, dialogue is not about negotiating, it's about seeking the common good. That same trip to Bolivia that I mentioned before, he stated that dialogue is for the common good, and the common good is sought by starting from our differences, constantly leaving room for new alternatives. So the first commitment would be to dialogue. The second is to work at looking at the world from another perspective. That's Pope Francis's words. And fearlessly opening ourselves to the other and to those who are different. The Pope speaks of the value, for example, of study abroad, of encountering another cultural horizon, of learning new languages, new customs and traditions. He recently inaugurated a 2-year campaign called Share the Journey, which is focused on getting to know the stories and varied perspectives of our immigrant and refugee brothers and sisters. We're going to work for the common good. We have to be able to see things from a variety of perspectives. The third commitment, I would think, would be the promotion of academic excellence. We need to look for ways of harnessing knowledge to the big issues that we face as a society, to the integral development of society, as Pope Francis would say. Health sciences, closing the achievement gap, addressing social injustices, helping folks to relate to one another. We see that in Pope Francis's encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si', where he calls us to work together to address issues of great concern. A fourth commitment would be the cultivation of an attitude of service. Pope Francis has emphasized fraternal service from the beginning of his pontificate, as he called for a poor church for the poor. How often he has spoken of our obligation to tend to the needs of our brothers and sisters, to be the church's caress for those in need, and in the process, to have a new encounter with the God who gave his life for our common good. The fifth commitment would be the deepening of faith and opening our hearts to grace. While the first 4 ways would be true of all universities, this fifth category emphasizes the importance of universities like St. Thomas that are faith-based. Faith, Pope Francis says, makes us appreciate the architecture of human relationships because it grasps their ultimate foundation and their definitive destiny in God, in his love, and thus sheds light on the art of building. As such, it becomes a service to the common good. In Laudato Si', which, as I mentioned, addresses the role of preserving the environment as part of the common good, Pope Francis stressed that faith, by revealing the love of God the Creator, enables us to respect nature all the more and to discern in it a grammar written by the hand of God. The grace of Christ leads us to cooperate with him and building an ever more just and fraternal world, a world in which every person and every creature can dwell in peace, in the harmony of God's original creation. Those of you who are alumni should be proud, I think, of what your alma mater is doing in all 5 of those areas. I have come to recognize the University of St. Thomas as a great place of dialogue. I think concretely of the work of students and professors to promote greater dialogue between Christians and Muslims. I think in particular of a recent evening that I spent at the university that brought together not only Catholic and Lutheran scholars, but also the Lutheran Bishop of St. Paul and me. That promotion of the multicultural dimension is something that has certainly been embraced by the university. I first came to really know the University of St. Thomas when I was working in Rome, and I would encounter the Catholic studies students who were so enriched by that experience. They traveled all over creation using Rome as their base, but soaking in that opportunity that they had to look at the world from a different perspective. Last year, when I had the opportunity to be present for graduation, for the commencement exercises, and I listened to the names and watched the faces of those coming up for the diplomas, it was like the United Nations. I know that the university greatly appreciates the multicultural aspect of the campus. Not only, as I said, in terms of promoting study abroad, but really, which can be life-changing, but also that sensitivity to culture that is at the very heart of what the university does. I felt very privileged to be at the inauguration of the Doherty Family College. And once again, it was that strong emphasis on respecting the varied cultures and being able to see the world through different eyes. You know far better than I the university's commitment to academic excellence. I think I need to say little about that, or really its commitment to service. I was happy to hear at lunch today that Dr. Sullivan's dog Bella is hosting a service opportunity today as the students come together to make mats for dogs and cats at the Humane Society. You put forward a service opportunity, and you always have students who want to respond. Well, we think about the recent announcement about the GHR scholars and how it is that they're intended to be scholars with a sense of service. It's both that academic component and also the service component. And then finally, the promotion of an openness to the faith dimension of life. I've been so inspired in the time that I've been here by the many ways in which the students of the University of St. Thomas continue to support one another in the expression of their faith. I'm grateful that campus ministry is represented here today. I've been thrilled, for example, to be present at Tommy Catholic, where you are able to pack so many people into the chapel, and really with a great fire for the faith. I've been delighted when I've been to Koryezu, hosted at the seminary, where students and alumni come together to really praise God before the Blessed Sacrament, and they make such great use of the sacrament of reconciliation. I'm delighted when I've come to see the great work of St. Paul's outreach on the campus. Delighted when I see the great undertakings of the students of Catholic studies, and certainly the presence of our two seminaries, St. John Vianney and St. Paul Seminary, on the campus of the university and part of the fabric of life there. Now, you certainly, as alumni, have a role to play in that. It's been part of the foundation that you've been willing to lay. It's part of the very process of making sure that the university continues to grow and to be faithful to its mission. I challenge you to hold the university's feet to the fire in each of the above areas. Promote dialogue, even when it's difficult. Insist on the inclusion of the faith dimension of our human experience, drawing on our Catholic intellectual and spiritual traditions, even while expressing welcome to people from all faith traditions, or no faith tradition at all, continuing to support that great tradition of academic excellence, that tradition of service. At the same time, I suspect that you each have a key role to play as well in your own commitment to serving the common good, whether it be in your families or in your communities. Having benefited from a superb education grounded in the Catholic intellectual tradition, it falls to you to strive for solidarity, for peace, and for mutual advancement. As we prepare for Christmas this year, let's commit ourselves to living in such a way that the university's tagline, the university's motto, could describe us as well. May we do all for the common good. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Hebda. Thank you so much for speaking to our mission of advancing the common good. Thank you so much for deepening our understanding of what it means to live that mission and stressing how important it is that we remain committed, and personally and as an institution, to the ongoing commitment to being for the common good. So thank you so much. So now we are going to have a treat in just a moment. But before that, I have one announcement, and that is those lovely, lovely arrangements on your table. One person at your table is invited to take that home with them, and we ask that the person at the table whose birthday is closest to December 25th take the arrangement home with them. So I hope many of you will enjoy these as a festive addition to your holiday decorations. And second, and while you're fighting over that, or negotiating that, I should say, I'm going to ask you to sit back because we have one last treat for you and enjoy music from the St. Thomas Chamber Singers, who will be performing in our Christmas concerts this Sunday in Orchestra Hall. Special thank you to Dr. Angela Brooker for her direction of these fine, fine singers. And now please join me in welcoming the St. Thomas Chamber Singers. Thank you.
Hallelujah. piece is from South Africa, and we are thrilled beyond belief to welcome as our accompanist the new Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of St. Thomas, Dr. Yohuru Williams.
Hemlanjeni e Babiloni, Hemlanjeni e Babiloni, Hemlanjeni e Babiloni, Sativu, Sativutu, Salafanzi, Sativutu, Sativutu, Salafanzi, Salila. Somada si abonga, cortando si pelona, si cala, si lupeka, o ya si suli, si miembesi. O sativutu, sala fanzi. Somada si abonga, cortando si pelona, si cala, si lupeka, o ya si suli, si miembesi. O sativutu, sala fanzi. Is a